This Halloween, Dark Grays dares you to peek behind the veil. Forget silly costumes. Real specters linger, and some even have a wicked sense of humor. Join us for chilling tales where truth meets terror, and the laughter you hear might just be your own, or theirs. Every creak is a greeting from the other side. Welcome to the season of shadows. If you crave genuine chills and a good dark laugh, subscribe now and hit the notification bell to ensure you don't miss a single spectral story. It was then, amidst the howling wind and the rhythmic drip of rain, that he heard it, faint footsteps echoing from the cellar below. A shiver traced its way down his spine. Carol was standing right beside him, her hand clutching his arm, her breath hitched in her throat. They were alone. The Crown Inn, a 16th century coaching tavern, stood as a sentinel of time, where the past wasn't just history, it was irregular. Locals whispered tales of a spectral landlord, forever bound to the crown, his presence felt in every misplaced glass and unexplained chill. Their biggest concern, they mused, would likely be wrestling with ancient plumbing or deciphering the pub's notoriously complex cellar system. Silence descended, quickly shattered by an unexpected melody. The jukebox, which he was certain he'd unplugged, roared to life, blaring Ghost Town by the Specials. Dave, face paling, exchanged a look with Carol. This was beyond a simple poltergeist party. The locals, a colourful tapestry of Derbyshire characters, wasted no time in filling Dave and Carol in on the pub's storied and often spooky past. They spoke of the Crown Inn not just as a building, but as a living entity, steeped in centuries of human drama and lingering echoes. Each tale was delivered with a knowing wink and a shiver, a blend of local pride and genuine apprehension. Some swore the pub was haunted by the restless spirit of Thomas Bell, a young stable boy whose life was tragically cut short in a devastating fire behind the old stables in 1723. His story was a local tragedy, a cautionary tale whispered through generations, and his presence, they claimed, was often heralded by the faint scent of smoke or the sudden, inexplicable chill in the air. He was a mischievous spirit, they said, prone to moving objects and playing pranks, forever seeking the attention he was denied in life. Others spoke of a more elegant yet equally unsettling apparition, a woman in black, her form shimmering like heat haze, drifting silently through the beer garden. She was a harbinger, they believed, her appearances almost always preceding last orders, as if she too was reluctant to leave the warmth and camaraderie of the inn. Her presence was often accompanied by a profound sense of melancholy, a quiet sorrow that settled over the garden like a damp fog. Dave, ever the pragmatist, initially tried to inject some levity into these chilling accounts. "If she's gonna haunt the place," he'd quip, polishing a glass, "at least she could stack some glasses or help with the washing up." His jokes, however, began to ring hollow as the incidents escalated, moving beyond mere mischief to direct, undeniable interaction. The laughter died in his throat when customers, mid-conversation, would suddenly gasp, their drinks inexplicably knocked from their hands by an unseen force, shattering on the floor. One particularly bewildered patron, a burly man who claimed to fear nothing, recounted a truly unnerving experience. He swore he felt a cold breath on his ear, followed by a distinct, disembodied whisper, clear as day, "Mine's a lager." The man, pale as a ghost himself, promptly ordered a double whiskey, claiming he needed something stronger than what the invisible barman was offering. The pub's reputation, it seemed, was not just folklore. It was a living, breathing and very thirsty reality. The playful, albeit unsettling antics of the pub's unseen residents took a decidedly sinister turn when Carol, ever diligent, decided to review the CCTV footage one quiet morning. She was looking for a misplaced delivery, perhaps a clue to the previous night's minor disturbances. What she found, however, was far more disturbing than any missing keg. At precisely 2:43 a.m., the bar door, which Dave had meticulously locked and bolted, swung open with a slow, deliberate creak, as if inviting an invisible guest. Carol leaned closer to the monitor, her heart beginning to pound a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Then the impossible happened. A pint glass, sitting innocently on the counter, lifted itself with an almost graceful motion. It floated 3 feet in the air, suspended in defiance of gravity, before exploding mid-air in a shower of glittering shards. The sound, though silent on the grainy footage, seemed to echo in Carol's mind. Just as the glass shattered, the camera feed cut to static, a sudden jarring blankness that felt like a punch to the gut. Carol screamed, a raw, primal sound that brought Dave running. He rushed in, finding her trembling, pointing a shaking finger at the frozen screen. "That's it," Dave declared, trying to sound brave. "No more horror films before bed, love. You're seeing things." He tried to rationalize, to find a logical explanation, but even his own voice lacked conviction. But when they cautiously ventured into the bar, the scene defied all logic. The floor, where countless glass shards should have been scattered, was utterly spotless. Not a single splinter, not a speck of dust. It was as if the explosion had never happened, or perhaps had been meticulously cleaned by an invisible, fastidious entity. The only evidence was the chilling footage and the lingering scent of ozone in the air. News of the incident naturally spread like wildfire through the village. Soon a TV crew from a local paranormal investigation channel, their equipment gleaming with scientific intent, arrived to investigate. They set up their cameras, their EMF meters, and their thermal imaging devices, all designed to capture the unseen. As their lead investigator, a man named Derek with an air of practiced skepticism, began his monologue near the dartboard, his fancy EMF meter suddenly went berserk, shrieking like a banshee. "Are there any spirits present?" Derek intoned, his voice wavering slightly as the meter pulsed wildly. In response, a pint glass, sitting innocently on the bar, began to slide. It glided smoothly across the polished wood, stopping with an unnerving clink directly in front of Derek, as if offering itself for a spectral toast. Derek, a man who had faced countless bumps in the night, stared at the glass, then at his crew, then back at the glass. He quit the show 2 days later, citing creative differences and a sudden inexplicable aversion to pubs. One particularly tempestuous night, as a fierce storm raged outside, plunging the village into darkness, the power at the Crown Inn flickered and died. Dave, ever the stoic landlord, fumbled for a candle, muttering under his breath about bloody electrics and the general inconvenience of modern life. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows across the ancient walls, making the familiar pub feel suddenly alien and vast. It was then, amidst the howling wind and the rhythmic drip of rain, that he heard it, faint rhythmic footsteps echoing from the cellar below. A shiver traced its way down his spine. "Rats," he mumbled, trying to reassure himself, though the sound was too heavy, too deliberate for vermin. Then a cold wave of realization washed over him. Carol was standing right beside him, her hand clutching his arm, her breath hitched in her throat. They were alone. The cellar door, a heavy ancient slab of wood, began to creak open slowly, agonizingly, as if pushed by an unseen hand. A blast of icy air, carrying with it the faint, unmistakable scent of wood smoke and damp earth, swept through the room, extinguishing Dave's candle. They were plunged into absolute darkness, save for the distant flashes of lightning illuminating the pub in stark, momentary relief. Carol's voice, a mere whisper, was barely audible above the storm. "Thomas Bell," she breathed, the name hanging in the air like a curse. From the inky blackness of the cellar, a man's voice, faint but undeniably clear, responded. It was weary, tinged with a centuries-old grievance. "Still waiting for my wages, sir," it said, the words echoing with a profound sense of injustice. Dave, startled beyond measure, dropped the candle, which clattered loudly on the stone floor. Carol let out a piercing scream, a sound that seemed to tear through the very fabric of the storm. At that precise moment, as if on cue, the lights flickered back on, bathing the pub in a harsh, fluorescent glow. And there, standing at the foot of the cellar stairs, was a figure. He was soaked in soot, his clothes tattered and singed, holding a tarnished tankard in one hand. His eyes, ancient and sorrowful, met theirs. He offered a faint, melancholic smile, and then, as quickly as he had appeared, he vanished, leaving behind only the lingering scent of smoke and the profound silence of their shock. After that unforgettable night, something shifted at the Crown Inn. The terrifying encounters didn't cease, but they took on an oddly domestic, almost routine quality. It was as if Thomas Bell, having finally made his presence undeniably known, decided to settle into a more permanent, albeit spectral role. The pub, once a place of unsettling mystery, became a stage for a peculiar supernatural sitcom. Glasses, left haphazardly on the bar, would often be found neatly stacked, sparkling clean, as if an invisible, meticulous hand had tidied them. The jukebox, once a source of random, ghostly tunes, now seemed to have a curated playlist, exclusively playing old pub songs, sea shanties, folk ballads, and rousing drinking anthems, always at a perfectly respectable volume. It was as if Thomas had a particular taste in music and a strong aversion to anything modern. The most astonishing and frankly convenient development involved the whiskey. Whenever a customer ordered a measure, the bottle would, with an almost theatrical flourish, float off the shelf. It would hover gracefully, tilt, and pour itself with uncanny precision into the waiting glass, before neatly refilling the measure and returning to its spot. Dave, initially dumbfounded, eventually started calling him Tom. He'd shout, "Cheers, Tom!" after a particularly well-poured dram, and sometimes the taps would hiss back in response, as if in spectral approval. Carol, however, was not entirely amused by their new invisible housemate. Her patience wore thin, especially after the ghost developed a habit of changing the TV channel every time she tried to settle down for an evening of Love Island. The screen would flicker. The channel would switch to a dusty old documentary about local history, or worse, a black and white film from the 1940s. "Honestly, Tom," she'd sigh, "can't you find your own entertainment?" It seemed even ghosts had strong opinions on reality television. Life at the Crown Inn settled into this strange supernatural rhythm. Dave and Carol, against all odds, found themselves adapting to their ghostly companion, almost treating him as another eccentric regular. Everything seemed to be, if not normal, then at least predictably abnormal. Until one cold, blustery October night when Dave smelled it again, the acrid, unmistakable scent of smoke. His heart leaped into his throat. The fire alarm, a modern intrusion in the ancient pub, blared its piercing warning, shattering the quiet evening. He raced downstairs, his mind flashing back to Thomas Bell's tragic end, a cold dread gripping him. The bar was empty, the alarm screaming its urgent message into the void. But there, sitting innocently on the counter, was that same candle he'd dropped months earlier during the power cut, now lit, its flame dancing merrily, casting an eerie glow. Above it, written in condensation on the ancient mirror, were the words stark and chilling, "Don't forget me." It was a plea, a warning, a desperate cry from the past, reminding them of the tragedy that had bound Thomas to this place. The message was clear. His story, his suffering was not to be forgotten. The next day, the local fire brigade, looking rather bewildered, came to inspect the wiring, convinced there must be a fault. They found no electrical issues, no faulty circuits. Instead, deep beneath the floorboards, directly beneath where the old stables once stood, they discovered ancient scorch marks, marks that no one had seen in centuries, hidden away, yet still bearing the silent testimony of a long-forgotten blaze. It was a chilling confirmation that Thomas Bell's presence was not just a figment of imagination, but a deeply ingrained part of the pub's very foundations. The Crown Inn stands today, a beacon of history and mystery in the heart of Derbyshire. Visitors, drawn by the whispers of its spectral inhabitants, often describe the place as uniquely welcoming, despite the occasional, inexplicable chill near the bar. It's a place where the past is palpable, and the veil between worlds feels remarkably thin. If you're brave enough to order a pint after midnight, you might just experience the legendary Tom's Pour. Many patrons swear they've seen a freshly drawn pint slide across the polished bar, stopping just short of their outstretched hand, as if presented by an invisible barman. It's a subtle yet undeniable testament to the pub's enduring enchantment. Dave and Carol, the intrepid landlords, still run the pub, their initial skepticism long replaced by a weary yet affectionate acceptance. They've learned to live with Tom, their resident ghost, and have even come to appreciate his unique contributions to the pub's character. He's a decent barman, they'll tell you with a wry smile, never takes breaks, never calls in sick, and certainly never ever forgets to collect his wages, even if they're paid in the currency of remembrance and respect. So, the next time you find yourself in Derbyshire, seeking a pint and a story, step into the Crown Inn. Order your drink, listen closely to the whispers of the past, and perhaps, just perhaps, you'll feel a cold breath on your neck, or see a glass slide across the bar. Because at the Crown Inn, some spirits never leave the bar. They simply become part of the furniture, part of the folklore, and an unforgettable part of your pub experience. Dare to visit the Crown Inn. Share your own ghostly pub encounters in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more tales of the unexplained, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a spectral story. And who knows, maybe we'll see you at the bar. Just don't forget to say hello to Tom.